DreAllDay.com.
You are now tuned in to the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day, to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve is yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative, the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into one bundle, one package, one mindset, one method, one philosophy, one book, one show, one daily masterclass that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today, I'm gonna give you the third of your 3 vaccination shots. Now, I know there was one vaccine where you only needed 1 shot. There's another vaccine where you needed 2 shots. This vaccine, you need 3 shots. It doesn't mean that the vaccine is weak. It just means we're vaccinating you for so many things that we gotta give you 3 different shots. Now, the good thing is you don't have to wait 14 days to get your second shot. I'm gonna give you all 3 of these vaccines at the exact same goddamn time. And this third vaccine is a vaccination for blind compliance. What does that mean? Vaccination for blind compliance. What that means is this is the vaccine that's going to keep you and stop you from feeling like you need to listen to, and even worse, follow the instructions from anyone out there just because they're offering you something. Especially if the compliance they're asking for is based on their own fear or some bullshit that they're throwing out there in the world. And unfortunately, there's so many of these people that we had to offer a vaccine for. We couldn't just tell you not to do it. We had to go out and put a vaccine, so this is not going to keep happening to you over and over again. Now, before I get into explaining more of this topic, let me remind you or inform you that I have a text line where I want you to send me a text and tell me the best insight that you have gotten from today's masterclass. What are you going to do different, think different, feel different based on what you heard today? Or if you have a question about something that I said today, a challenge to something that I said today, or you just want to get my daily motivation text messages, which you will get once you text me my number, just send me a text and say what you got to say. My number is 305-384-6894. Again, 305-384-6894. Now, the reason that I even thought of this topic is on the heels of what I talked about. I mentioned the COVID fear. I told you how to get over your COVID fear in episode number 1839. And if you haven't listened to 1839, it is linked down below in the show notes. But it made me curious, and then it starts to make me sad to see people walking the streets alone with a mask on, even down here in South Florida, even after, quote unquote, the science has told us that the virus doesn't even spread most of the time outdoors. It doesn't spread when you're walking around by your damn self. And wearing a mask when you're by yourself is not going to do anything, especially outside. And most of the time, the people I see walking around with a mask on by themselves have the vaccine. So it's crazy, right? Or businesses making a big deal, and they've done this since last year, even after the science just shut this whole idea down. Businesses have been making a big deal over the last year. All of you have seen this, and maybe some of you are these business owners doing it. Don't be mad at me for pointing it out. Making a big deal how they're cleaning everything better than before, which is absolutely a lie. When people don't even get COVID from touching the surface. You don't get COVID from touching. I remember I was in my building, right? And I went up. I'll tell you the story. I went upstairs in my building, 1 floor up, because I was looking for the luggage cart in my building. And the thing in the building is they let you take the luggage cart. I've lived in other buildings where if you wanted the luggage cart to carry big stuff in and out of your apartment, you had to give the person at the front desk your ID. So therefore, it would kind of connect you, and you would have to go back and bring it back to get your ID back, because nobody wants to just lose their ID. But in this building, you could just grab the luggage cart and take it, and nobody asks you for ID. So people just take the luggage cart, use it, and then they just leave it on their floor wherever they are. And if somebody else needs the luggage cart, then all right, good luck finding it. So one day I needed the luggage cart. I think I had a shipment of books like the Mirror of Motivation, and the third day coming in, I needed to get them from the package area up to my unit, but there were no luggage carts where they usually keep them. So I'm looking around the building. I'm walking floor to floor looking for the damn luggage cart, and the luggage cart ended up being 1 floor above me, right? So I'm grabbing the luggage cart from my floor, and I see this guy come out of his apartment. I had never seen this guy before. Big guy. This guy had to be about maybe 300, 350 pounds, black guy. And I'm not fat shaming the guy, but he's about 350 pounds. And he was taking the trash out. And the trash chute was in between where I was standing and where he was at. He's walking towards the door, and he goes to open the door to where the trash is at. And he uses his shirt to open the door so he can avoid, his hand physically touching the door, because I'm assuming because he doesn't want to get germs on his hand that could possibly get him COVID. And I remember seeing him do that, and I just chuckled to myself. I'm thinking to myself, okay, dude, you really want to save your health? What you need to do is go to that gym downstairs. But anyway, the whole point is, again, don't get mad at me, anybody who's, listen, you get mad, fuck you just get mad. Anyway, the point is, it makes me sad to see people walking around and, again, with the mask on outside, but then saying that we're cleaning everything better when COVID doesn't even come from surfaces. Even airlines. I've been on a lot of flights since COVID happened, and these airlines are making all these big deals about how they have these cleaning protocols and how they got to clean everything extra in between flights. I don't know if any of you have been on flights, but I've been on flights and the airline seats are just as dirty as they were before. I remember I was on a flight from Philadelphia to Miami a couple weeks ago, and the seat, it was dirty. It was like they hadn't even cleaned it at all. And if you really think about it, here's what happens with airlines. A flight comes in, let's say a flight comes in from New York to LA. All right, so the flight flew from JFK, it lands at LAX, all the people get off the plane. Then this is what the flight attendants do. They walk through the plane and they pick up anything big that they see that needs to be removed. Like somebody left some trash, they get that. And then they know whatever they do, recuperate, rejuvenate. And then people get right on the next flight. They're not cleaning every single seat. There's no cleaning crew coming through there. So a lot of companies have made a big deal out of, oh, we're doing all this extra cleaning. And it's bullshit. They're not doing it at all. Maybe some companies are doing it, but I know airlines are not doing it. I'll give you another example. I did a speaking gig in, I won't even say what city, not too long ago from when I'm recording this. And the woman was saying to me, the woman who ended up booking me said, Dre, you're gonna speak, but is a speaker before you, is a speaker after you. So because of the COVID protocols, or the health and safety protocol, I don't think she said COVID, the health and safety protocols, here's what we're gonna do. In between each speaker, there's gonna be 30 minutes of time so that we have time to clean and sanitize the space where you're speaking. And I'm thinking to myself, as she's saying that to me, I'm like, what? Who the hell, what space are you gonna clean and sanitize? The stage that we're standing on, what are you gonna sanitize? And we're wearing clip-on mics, so it's not like, what are you cleaning? So that's what I was thinking. I didn't say that, but this is what I'm thinking. So then I go to the event. I ended up doing this speaking gig, and I saw the person speak before me. She left the stage, and then I was coming up next. They clipped the mic on me. Nobody cleaned anything. There was no cleaning crew. I did my speech. I asked the woman, can I go over my time? Because it wasn't enough time for me to say everything I wanted to say and take questions. She said, yeah, go over. I went over my time. It was only 10 minutes of space between me and the next person. And when I got off the stage, they took my mic. Then whoever else went up next, maybe they used different mics, possibly. Let's just assume that they did. But there was no cleaning crew. There was no cleaning to happen. So I'm just looking at all this stuff. And even when I remember I traveled internationally, and they make you go get a COVID PCR test. And the test costs anywhere from 75 to, how much did I pay for that damn test? $250 at the Philadelphia airport. And Delta, y'all still owe me my goddamn money for the extra test that I had to take because some bullshit information that they gave me. We'll get to that in a different day. And all of that, when you have to take this test and then all this stuff, it means nothing. Are you gonna not take my money because I didn't want to go get this? All of this shit, a lot of this shit has just been blind compliance that has been forced upon us. And mostly I thought of this topic, if you couldn't guess, from the COVID experience that we have all had over the last year. I don't know how much any of you spends out of the house. I'm out of the house every single day and traveling and doing things. So maybe some of you have complied and stayed in your house and stayed away from each other. Even the emails that I get these emails from, what's this guy's name? Dan Gelber. He is the mayor of Miami Beach. And he sends out he does these little YouTube videos, and he'll send them out to all the residents of Miami Beach. And every message that he sent out the message like every 2 weeks since March of 2020. So there's a lot of messages. And every time he sends a message out, he has always ended it by saying the same thing. Stay safe and mostly at home. He says that every time. Stay safe and mostly at home. I'm like, goddamn, Mayor Gelber, how long are we supposed to stay in the house? Like, you ain't in the house. You in your office making this video, and we're in this beautiful place, Miami, and you're telling everybody to stay in the house. And all of this has led to this topic here today. All right, you couldn't guess. All right, blind compliance. Because once an idea is planted in somebody's mind, especially one that is fear-based, based on yesterday's episode on fear porn, you can forget about it. People are pretty much going to comply because fear can control people much stronger and much longer than logic can. But hopefully today's vaccine will cure you of that disease. Point number one, today's topic once again is your vaccine for blind compliance. Question everything. If I don't say anything else today's episode, this is the one thing I want you to remember. Question everything. Before you comply with something, ask a question. Now, especially those of you who live in America. Now, if you live in a different country, I've never been a resident of a different country. I've stayed in different countries, playing ball and traveling and stuff like that, but I've never been an official citizen of any other country but the United States. So in other countries, maybe this might not go over so well. If you live in China, you probably shouldn't question too many things. So you might end up in jail. And then, from what I hear, their justice system ain't like ours. But in America, even if you're traveling here and visiting, question everything. Now, you're allowed to ask questions in the United States. Questions are not against the rules. When I offer an idea that has substance, I like when you ask me questions about it. Because that question that you ask me about anything that I say here on this show, you know what it does for me? It gives me a chance to offer even more substance because you're asking. If I offer you some bullshit, I don't want you to ask me anything. If I offer you something and I know it's some bullshit, I don't want you to ask me any questions, because then if I got to talk about it more, it's just going to become more and more obvious that I'm offering you some bullshit. But I'm offering you substance. I want you to ask me questions, because then it allows me even more opportunity to solidify the substance of my point. This is why I have a texting line, and I've told you, text me, tell me what you liked about this. Tell me what you didn't like. If you have a question, let me know. If I said something that's questionable, let me know about it. If I said something that was some bullshit, if I offered you some inaccurate facts, let me know what it is, because I want to talk about it, because everything that I'm saying, from my perspective, there is substance in it. So if someone's offering you substance in life, they want you to ask them questions, because then they can further solidify their substance. If someone's offering you some bullshit, guess what? The last thing that they want is you asking them questions, because then the more they talk, the more their bullshit gets exposed. Any of you who's ever read a book or heard or listened to, or any of you knows anyone who works in law enforcement, or someone who works in any type of investigations, like anyone who does any type of interrogation, where you're asking people questions about what happened. If you read any books on interrogation, you'll notice that I've heard all of them say this, is that when someone is telling a story, let's say I'm a cop and I'm questioning you about some crime that you may be a suspect in, or maybe you're just a person of interest. I'm gonna ask you a question about what you did on Thursday night. And you're gonna tell me what you did. Now, 3 or 4 times in the course of our interaction, I'm going to ask you again and again to tell me what you did. I'm going to keep asking you and let you keep telling me the story over and over again, because I'm looking for inconsistencies in your story. Because if your story is some bullshit, eventually one of the inconsistencies is going to show. You're going to tell me something different each time. I might ask you to tell me what you did from 11 o'clock to 2 a.m. And then I might ask you to work backwards from 2 a.m. back to 11 o'clock. It's going to be hard for you to keep up the bullshit when you got to keep reversing the story, or I keep asking you different directions, or I just jump in at 12:30 and say, oh, what were you doing at 12:30 again? And then let you tell me, because if it's some bullshit, eventually it's going to become obvious. But if you're telling me the truth, it's just going to be more substantial the more you talk about it. People who are giving you bullshit don't want any questions asked. They just want you to blindly comply with whatever they tell you. If someone's giving you substance and you ask questions, they are glad that you asked, because now they can give you even more information. And I'm pausing there because I want that to sink in. And I want you to think about what you have seen and what you've experienced over the last year plus. Have you experienced people who want you to ask them more questions so that they can give you more substance? Or have you experienced people who want you to just blindly comply with what they say, because maybe, just maybe, it's some bullshit? If there's something substantial behind the requested compliance, your questions will uncover that substance, if it wasn't already offered from the beginning, which it should have been. And if there's nothing useful behind it, your questions will reveal that as well. Now, I told you how to become a person of substance in episode number 1286. And even though it's not specifically related to what I just said, I would suggest you go listen to episode 1286, because people of substance, they want to be scrutinized. They want to be looked at. They want to be questioned. They want to be interviewed. They want to talk about what they do and who they are and how they think. Why? Because there's plenty of substance to go around. All right, they can't run out. Now, a person of bullshit, they don't want you to notice them. They just want to get in and get out. Why? Because the more scrutinized they are, the more it's going to become obvious that there's nothing behind it. I want you to keep that in mind. Let's move on to point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is a vaccination for blind compliance. Do not break laws, but do break rules. I got a whole masterclass coming on just this very subject very soon. Understand that rules were meant to be broken. Laws were not. Do not break laws. Okay, so don't get arrested and then come, had the cops calling me like, oh, Dre on Work On Your Game told me to go break the law. No, break the rules. Do not break the law. If you don't know the difference between a law and a rule, don't do anything until you get the information. Okay, rules were meant to be broken, and often rules do not get changed until someone has the cojones, the balls, to break them. And that's when everyone, even the rule makers themselves, sees how non-compliance may be better than compliance, and that's when things change. Now, I told you to get some balls in episode number 1796. The only way a rule gets changed is when somebody has the balls to break a rule and says, you know what, I'm not going to follow that anymore. And then everybody says, no, I'm not going to follow it either. Then the other people say, I'm not going to follow it either. Then all of a sudden, it can't be enforced anymore because you can't punish everybody at the same time. You can punish 1 or 2 or 10 people, but you can't punish 1 million people. So if everybody said, you know what, I'm not going to wear a mask anymore. If everybody said, I'm going to get on this plane and not wear a mask, well, what's America going to do? Cancel all their flights? They won't make any money. They'll say, all right, well, I guess we just have to fly without masks. I don't know how that experiment could even be pulled off. It's just a theoretical idea that I'm giving you, but you can use this on any level and anything that you do. If everybody just says, we're not going to follow these rules anymore, then all of a sudden the rule ain't so much of a rule anymore. And the whole point that I'm making is rules are as strong or as flimsy as people's willingness to comply or not comply with them. A rule is only as strong as your willingness to enforce it and how much people believe you will enforce it. For example, all during COVID, I'm not telling you this as a way to brag, I'm just telling you as an actual fact. All during COVID, whenever I was walking around in my building, I never had a mask on in the building, never. I wouldn't wear a mask in the elevator. I would not wear a mask walking around the lobby. I didn't wear a mask in the gym. I didn't wear a mask in the common areas. I would go and talk to management, and when I would walk into management's office, they would put their mask on to talk to me, and I would not put my mask on to talk to them. And I didn't give a damn the entire time, and nobody said anything to me. And I'm not telling you that to impress you, but just to impress upon you, I didn't want to follow that rule. It was just a rule. And understanding a rule, this is the reason I'm bringing it up, is only as strong as someone's willingness to enforce it and how much I give a damn about their enforcement. What are you going to do? Are you going to fine me? You going to kick me out of the building? What are you going to do if I don't put this mask on? Nobody ever said anything to me because that would have been my answer. I would have been like, I'm not putting the mask on. What you going to do? And this is the point. If you don't believe that someone's going to do anything to you for not complying, then you don't really have to follow their rule. The only time you follow rules is if you are concerned of what might happen if you don't follow the rule. That's the value of a rule. It's enforcement. That's it. When people see how non-compliance might be a better idea, or they see how non-compliance is inevitable because too many people are non-complying, then the rule just slowly fades away. And that's pretty much what's going to happen with a lot of what's happened with COVID over the last year. You see that we have these organizations, the WHO and the CDC are coming out with these things and saying, okay, well now you don't have to wear a mask in this place and you don't have to socially distance in this situation. And if you have this, then you can do that and these things. Understand that people have already been doing these things before they announced it. It's just they're saying it as if they're the ones who's given the go to this. But a lot of people have already been doing it without needing to hear it from the CDC or hear it from the WHO. People are already not complying with their quote unquote rules. And again, this is the point. Because they couldn't enforce them with these people, they say, all right, so either they can just disappear and say nothing and be quiet, or they can act like they're the ones who gave the word, but they're not really the ones who gave the word. And this is the idea that I want you to understand. I was in Vegas recently, and I rode the monorail in Vegas. They have this, they still need to develop it a little bit more. I think it's pretty much done as far as it's going to be done right now, but I think they need to add more to it because it makes it easy for people to move around the touristy area of Las Vegas without having to walk. And it was ridiculously hot in Vegas. It's the hottest it's ever been all the times I've been in Las Vegas. This recent time it was 115 degrees outside. It was crazy. But anyway, I was on this monorail, and the monorail had many signs that said there's a mask required. And I kept my mask with me. I brought a mask with me just in case everybody had a mask on or there was someone there enforcing it. But the first time I rode the monorail, the doors open, there was a bunch of people in there with no mask on. I said, oh, okay, all right, this is over. And there were signs everywhere. There were signs in my hotel, on the wall, in the elevator, mask required, and there were mask signs everywhere, but nobody had a mask on. And this is the thing. It slowly goes away when people just stop complying. Rules disappear when people stop following them. All right, this is what I want you to keep in mind. Rules do not disappear because some authority says, okay, now no more of that rule. Usually that doesn't happen if you really think about it. When people put themselves in a position of authority and they make rules and enforce rules upon you, the only time those rules stop is not because they say, okay, the rules are over now. Have you ever heard anybody say, all the rules that I impose on you, you don't have to follow them anymore? That doesn't happen. What happens is people just stop following the rules, and then slowly nobody even remembers that the rule even existed. Point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is a vaccination for blind compliance. People who ask for or attempt to require blind compliance are similar to the peddlers of fear porn in that they acquire significance from being able to push compliance upon you. They make themselves somebody by being a person who can tell you what you can do and what you can't do. I'll give you a thought experiment. Next time you come across somebody who seems to gain some significance from being able to tell you what rules you have to follow, just imagine that they didn't have that ability to tell you the rules. Is that person still significant? I went to a Miami Marlins baseball game about a month or two ago, and they had these ushers who walk up and down the aisles, and there were always ushers at the Miami Marlins baseball games, but not like they are now. At sporting event, any of you been to a sporting event since COVID? I think they had these ushers everywhere because I seen a game that was happening on TV and I saw the ushers walking up and down the aisles the exact same way. So I'm guessing everybody in the country did this. But these ushers walk up and down the aisles and they hold these signs in their hands that say, keep your mask on or something like that. Everybody has to have their mask on while in the building, even though we're all spaced out and there's nobody within 15 feet of you. And these ushers have to walk up and down the aisles the entire game, making sure people keep their mask on. And there was one usher who was trying to tell me, actually it was the head of security. This guy was allegedly the head of security at Miami Marlins Stadium, and he's telling people you can't put your feet up on the back of the seat that's in front of you, even though there's nobody in any of the seats around you. And this guy comes up to me and he's saying, you got to put your feet down. And I said, for what? And he was just saying, he just kept repeating it, put your feet down. I asked him a time or two, for what do I got to put my feet down? He was like, well, you just got to put your feet down. You're going to get kicked out of the stadium. It went that quickly, it escalated to that. And I offered him some words I'm not going to repeat here, even on my own show. But I told him what he needed to hear. And he walked away. And he said he was going to go get a police officer. And he did. He did actually go get a police officer. But by the time the cop came, or by the time he started making that threat, he was going to go get a cop, I was standing up. So my feet weren't on the back of the seat anymore. I was standing up so I could face him and square up to where he was. He was actually behind me when he was talking to me. And then the cop came. The cop was actually very nice as opposed to this punk security guard. And I'm telling you that story, that anecdote to go along with the question that I just asked you. Take away someone's significance in that they can attempt to force compliance upon you, and are they still significant? If they're no longer significant when you take away their ability to force compliance, then maybe they're only doing it because of the significance, not because the rule actually matters. How many people became significant over the last year because they can tell you, oh, you got to put your mask on, or you got to make sure your mask is covering your nose and your mouth? Who are they when that compliance goes away? When that mandate for forcing compliance goes away, does this person still matter? Or would you still even notice that they're there? So I want you to always consider the angle that another person has. I told you in episode number 750, know your angles and the angles of other people. Nobody does something for nothing. And somebody's angle might be they're only doing what they're doing because it gives them a certain level of significance, such as hustle porn, fear porn, blind compliance porn. Take that away from them, and are they still significant? Do they have any substance to bring to the table aside from that? If the answer is no, then that might be why they're doing it. And that's your vaccine mentally to understand why they're doing what they're doing. And if you want to be Machiavellian about it, you can use it against them. Let's recap today's class, which is a vaccine for blind compliance. makes me, as I said, what I've seen with people in COVID over the last year, the science. When it first came out and Trump was still president, everything was, oh, Trump's not listening to the science. We got to follow the science. So Trump was removed, new president comes in, and the science changed, which it's supposed to, but yet people are still following the same ideas from the previous science. But the science has changed. It's been a whole clusterfuck in some senses, but not really for me, because I understand these things. I already had the vaccine, but I want to make sure I spread the wealth by giving you the vaccine as well. Point number one, question everything. This is the key idea from this whole episode. Question everything. Questions are not against the rules. If someone is offering you that you need to blindly comply with what they're saying, and they are telling you about a rule, not a law, but a rule, and you question it and they get angry, or they just keep repeating themselves when you are asking them a question about a rule that they are telling you to blindly comply with, it's probably because they have no substance and they're giving you a whole bunch of bullshit. When someone has substance, they want you to ask them questions so that they can offer you even more substance. Challenge is, a lot of people trying to force blind compliance have no substance. Blind compliance is the only thing that they have. Point number two, don't break laws, but do break rules. Rules were meant to be broken, okay? And often, rules don't get changed until someone has the balls to break them, which is when other people, even the rule makers themselves, see how non-compliance might be better, and then slowly things change. Remember when the NBA had a dress code and every player was supposed to wear like business casual clothing? Now, does that happen anymore? Not really, because slowly people just stop following that rule and people just stop trying to enforce it. Notice nobody talks about the dress code anymore. Look at NBA players, what they're wearing when they come to the games these days. Nobody talks about the dress code anymore because slowly people just stop following that rule. Point number three, people who ask for or require blind compliance are similar to fear porn peddlers. Their significance is derived from being able to push compliance on you. They have no other reason or no other angle or avenue with which to be significant. So do a thought experiment. Next time you see someone trying to force blind compliance, ask yourself, is this person still significant if I don't comply with what they say, or if they can't force anyone to comply? Now, how many people became significant, again, over the last year because they could force blind compliance, and who are they when that blind compliance goes away? I want to give an exception to this rule, especially in the United States. I've talked about this already on this show. That was in episode number, let me make sure I'm giving you the right one. Episode number 1606, police is an exception. If you see a police officer trying to tell you to follow a certain rule, just assume that they can also turn that rule into a law in the moment. They have, what do we call that? Situational power, in which they can ruin your day or slow your day down by taking something that seems to be a rule, but they're trying to make it into a law. And again, your ability to read the room, read the energy of another person, specifically a cop. All right, don't gamble with this. Anything that I say here today when you're dealing with police officers in the United States or in other countries, because they can basically make the law in the moment. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't win in court and be vindicated, but do you want to go through all that, hiring a lawyer, having to show up at court, having to spend some time in jail, maybe getting arrested or fucked up or worse in a situation just to prove your point? So when you're dealing with police, just let the police officer be right, okay? If you're dealing with anybody else, like a fucking worker at Walmart, fuck them. You can violate their rules and question them all day because they can't do shit. All that being said, send me a text. Tell me the most valuable insight you got from today's masterclass. What would you do or think different based on what you heard today? My number is 305-384-6894. Again, 305-384-6894. Send me a text right now, and yes, I will hit you back. Work on your game. Dre all day.